Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
On the Thomas Drew practice fields for the 4th time this spring, and yeah, what you see is not a video trick. That's number 13, Tua Tagovailoa, throwing the football just a week after that index finger injury that he suffered at practice on the first day of spring drills. The sophomore quarterback is on the mend, and I tell you what, that's a good group of quarterbacks right there, number 2, number 13, and number 10. Hurts, Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones together. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by our good friends at Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris, WVUA 23 Sports Director, and we got Diet Pepsi tonight. You know, I've been going back and forth now. I put in a request for the new Pepsi Zero Sugar, which I'm a huge fan of. So we will have those soon, but Diet Pepsi's good as well, don't get me wrong. If you're a Diet Pepsi drinker, keep on drinking Diet Pepsi. But if you haven't tried Pepsi Zero Sugar, give it a shot. Oh, that great Pepsi taste, 0 calories. That's what I'm back on. This week I'm back on the lose some weight kick, Rodney. Goes back and forth. I'm going to try to stay on it this time, so hopefully you'll see a difference on the tube, and you'll see me drinking Diet Pepsi or Pepsi Zero Sugar from here on out. Remember to pick up some great Pepsi products next time you're at your local grocery store from Buffalo Rock Pepsi, a Southern original. Well, it was Coach Saban who let us know about Tua's, well, he called it a thumb injury last week, right? It turned out to be an index finger. And for the first time since that press conference last Tuesday, Coach Saban took to the podium in front of reporters. I mean, literally just a few minutes ago, our Brandon cameraman has already turned it around, and he's got some sound for us ready to go from the coach.
Tua has made a very nice recovery from his hand. You know, he did have a break. Dr. Kane and our medical staff do a fantastic job here. I tell you what, we probably have the best medical staff and the best medical group of people. Dr. Andrews, Dr. Kane, their whole group of people over there has done a phenomenal job with so many players here. And I guess it's a little bit like having insurance, you know. It doesn't matter what kind of insurance you have until you have to make a claim. But these guys are fabulous, and when we get guys hurt, man, they do a great job with them.
And I tell you what, they really do. And the medical staff does a great job, and Tua obviously has done a great job. His injury dominated the first week of practice, the conversation about spring practice. And certainly we're glad to see Tua back out there and throwing the football today. So let's start with that, and then we'll get into some other thoughts. But this time last week there was a lot of worry, a lot of concern. We knew at some point he would be back, but he was right back out for the next practice. And now today we saw the video of him throwing the football. So that's good news.
Yeah, really amazing, actually, Gary, as we watched him on the weekend on Saturday. You know, he's lightly tossing the ball. We heard that maybe within a week or so he would be throwing, and then today here he is throwing some. Now, again, let's be clear. There wasn't a ton of velocity that he was putting on the ball, but the fact that he's throwing this 1 week after the break is like you said, it's really amazing. Yeah,
and more video of Tua here as we watch he and Jalen Hurts. Coach Saban said last week they're going to split reps. Obviously, Mac Jones is looking to get his opportunity as well. That's it. We've got 3 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. There's not one coming in unless they can go out and find a graduate transfer. Garrett Minshew, we know, has decided to go to Washington State instead of coming to Alabama. Now, here's the deal. Last year they got through with 2 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. Mac Jones is the third. So theoretically, you're okay there, but obviously the health of all those guys is very important when you don't have a lot of depth at the position.
Yep. You generally would like to have it 4. Is what the most schools go by in terms of their program, having 4 quarterbacks on scholarship. Alabama obviously made it through last season with 3, but you see, Gary, when an injury like that occurs, how quickly all of a sudden you could be in trouble. But those are 3 quality quarterbacks. I think Mac Jones, we might add, that has really started off very well this spring.
Let's talk about the guys that are in charge of protecting those quarterbacks, and that's the offensive line. You lose the center in Bradley Bozeman. Everybody else is back, but Womack's out with a foot injury, the right tackle. There's a lot of young talent there. It appears to me, it's only a weekend, but it appears to me that they're looking at some different combinations on that offensive line, Rodney.
Yeah, we talked about it before spring practice started, Gary. There would be a lot of shuffling going on this offensive line to try to find the right combination. Obviously, you have to find somebody to replace Bradley Bozeman. You know, Ross Pierce-Baker, remember a couple of years ago, leading into the opener against USC up until about 8 to 10 days before that game, he was the guy that was pegged as the starter, but he moved back to left guard, and that's when they put Bozeman in at center. And but he has some experience doing that, and Pierce-Baker does, a guy that's been a 3-year starter at left guard. Again, Jonah Williams is at left tackle, but he's working at some other spots. You mentioned Womack out at right tackle. Jedrick Wills is getting some opportunities. Redshirt sophomore Scott Lashley from Mississippi, a guy physically looks as good as anybody out there. He's getting some opportunities. Lester Cotton's certainly still at right guard. And, you know, again, they have a lot of quality offensive linemen. They're getting some opportunities this spring. And don't forget about Alex Leatherwood. He's getting some reps at left tackle
we
as
won't
well.
forget about number 70, I promise you that. On the other side of the ball, up front on defense, there's concern there about some depth. But I tell you this, Brandon got a great shot of Raekwon Davis today in practice. I used it on the Sportscast at 6. He and Bugs both are going to be leaders this year. Now, there's some guys that, you know, they're going to have to build some depth there. But if you start your defensive line out with those two guys, you arguably are starting with two players that are as good as anybody in America.
They've got a chance to be fantastic players. I mean, Bugs came in last year as the #1 JUCO player in the country, transferred from junior college, and did a good job, Gary, but he really had to learn what it takes to play on this level, and I think that season certainly gave him that opportunity. He really had a great offseason. Raekwon Davis, we saw how he finished the season, but there's a lot of young guys.
Yeah.
LeBrian Ray, Fadarian Mathis, keep an ear out for that name. He's going to be really good. Quinnen Williams made a lot of plays when he was in there. So, again, not quite maybe the numbers we've seen, but there are some quality players.
And a veteran that I say keep an eye on, Johnny Dwight. I think he's going to get some valuable snaps this year. And, you know, Bugs flirted with going to the NFL draft, so it's big that he came back. All right, on the recruiting front, Rodney, Alabama picked up a commitment from a 2020 recruit this past weekend. I love this guy. Jackson Bratton, a 4-star linebacker from Muscle Shoals, tweeted his commitment on Sunday. Your thoughts on Bratton? He's a long, athletic linebacker. I mean, this kid can run. And some people are going to make the Keith Holcomb comparison, and that's not a bad comparison. But this guy, I think this guy's got a chance to be special.
Yeah, he's an excellent player, Gary. I mean, he was, again, he's only going to be a junior this coming year, so it's an early commitment. He's, what, 6'1", 6'2", 215 pounds. I mean, good-looking player, no question about that. Maybe the top high school linebacker in the state of Alabama for that classification 2020, and you know, hey, it's good to pick up an early commitment like that.
Yeah, Alabama's really pushing on the recruiting front. You know, when you drop all the way down to number 6 or 7, can't have that around here. You know that. Got to get back in that top 2 quick. That's what they're working to do. Well, still to come on TITV. Tonight's the annual Capital City Classic baseball game between Alabama and Auburn down in Montgomery. Find out why the event is extra special for the Tide's Chandler Taylor. Plus, Colin Sexton achieves another accolade that no other freshman in Crimson Tide men's basketball history has ever accomplished. That's big stuff there. And coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets as always. There's the number on your screen. Call us at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUA23.com or tweet at us using that hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return right after this timeout. Colin Sexton was named an Associated Press All-American honorable mention, the first Alabama first-year player to ever have that happen. That surprised me, some of the guys that have come through here. Sexton set the freshman single-season scoring record and was second in the SEC in points per game. He is still yet to announce his decision on whether he will return for his sophomore season or enter the NBA draft. And welcome back to TITV. I'm Gary Harris along with Rodney Orr. The Alabama softball team picked up a series victory on Sunday in thrilling fashion with the Tide trailing 2-1 in the 7th against Ole Miss. Sophomore slugger Bailey Hemphill dropped a single up the middle with 2 runners in scoring position. Alyssa Brown was the key one. She flew home, though, and got in with that winning run. Alabama walked off 3-2. Now, in the SEC standings, it only counts as 1 W, but the players say it means a whole lot more than that.
For sure, it gives us an extra juice just because just having to fight through that game back and forth, and then coming out with a win in the 7th inning, that's huge for us just because it shows us that we can do it. We're never out of a game. We're never out of a situation.
Everybody can say, look, we came from behind. We were down a run. We scored 2 in the bottom of the 7th for a walk-off win. So now that feeling is, well, we've been there, we've done that, we're going to do it again.
I'm not sure if Murphy's hitting the diamond or hitting the slopes. The Crimson Tide baseball team is hoping for a change in fortune, that's for sure. Bama taking on Auburn tonight in the annual Capital City Classic at Riverwalk Stadium in Montgomery. We'll have highlights at 10. Now, Auburn is 8-1 against the Tide in this particular game, but junior outfielder Chandler Taylor is looking forward to meeting the challenge.
It's a rivalry, and it's fun to play in that atmosphere. You know, it attracts 7,000 or 8,000 fans every year. And I always enjoy going home. You know, Montgomery's my hometown, so it's always a fun game for me to play in.
That game is just underway. Again, we'll have highlights tonight on WVUA 23 News at 10. All right, Rodney, after that fast start, Alabama's gotten into the conference. Now, they haven't been blowout losses, but they have lost 6 games in a row, 5 straight in the league, got swept at Tennessee. They're 1-5 in the conference. It's only going to get tougher. I guess it's a little bit of a reality check.
That momentum got turned around the wrong way, didn't it?
To get into the league, it's just proving to be more difficult. Again, they're playing hard. They're losing close, but talent-wise, there's a deficiency there as opposed to some of these other teams in the SEC.
Yeah. A long season, too, I think. And, you know, again, I think it's a great learning experience, great opportunity, young program. You know, Brad Bohannon's going to do a fantastic job. There's no doubt about that. You know, hopefully they can get it turned around and win some games down the stretch, Gary. But like you said, started so hot, everyone got really excited. But you knew when the SEC came around, as you said, certainly the competition was going to be much more difficult.
The thing that's disappointing about this past weekend was Alabama pitched well. I mean, they pitched really well in that series. Offensively, what I thought was the strong point of this club, they didn't hit. They just didn't hit, and that's disappointing because this club should be able to generate some runs. They didn't do it. In fact, on Sunday, they lost 2-1 and 3-0 in those 2 7-inning doubleheaders. And you score, you know, 1 run in 2 games, you're not going to win very often. But hopefully tonight they'll get a win against Auburn and build some momentum going back into conference play this weekend. Well, up next, we're welcoming your phone calls. And we've also got some gymnastics coming up with Dana Duckworth. Feeling good about the state of the program heading into the NCAAs. But phone calls is what we're pushing now because for all of you that tell me you can never get through, well, this is your lucky night. I know it's spring, and I know things slow down in the spring, but phone lines are wide open at 205-348-9882. Brandon just told me that there's nobody on the phone, so I don't want to hear it. Next time you run into me and say you couldn't get through, because if you call right now, you'll get through. You can also email us at the address on your screen, or you can tweet at us. Please, if you tweet at us, use that hashtag TITV. Get those phone lines lit up. We want to hear from you next here on Tider Insider TV.
SECs was a blast. It was so much fun, and our ladies did a great job. There was so much fight and so much example of staying in the Bama bubble. And, of course, we're a little disappointed because we came up short, and the ladies know that. But I told them, you know, it's a lesson. And wouldn't you rather learn that lesson now than at the national championships?
And the NCAA Tuscaloosa Regional is next Saturday, a week from this Saturday at 4 p.m. on April the 7th. Alabama is the number 6 overall seed and will welcome in the 7th seed Michigan, 18th seeded Georgia, and 3 other programs. The top 2 teams from the regional advance to the NCAA championships like the SECs in St. Louis. So Alabama looking to go back to old St. Louis. All right, Rodney, we're ready to head to the phone lines, and Bob is first up over in Buell. What's up, Bob in Buell?
Yeah, I was wondering about Ben Davis. What's his status on the team? And Phil Coleman, is he returning to the television?
All right, Bob. First on Philip Coleman, WVUA 23 news anchor at 6. We hope he can come back soon. He's dealing with a health issue, and we hope to have Phil back. I promise you, we miss him just as much as you do. As far as Ben Davis, yes, he's on the team, and we've talked about Ben quite a bit since he's from nearby Gordo. A lot of people are interested in him. Wayne Davis, his father, was an All-American linebacker, still the leading tackler in Crimson Tide football history. It's just taking a little time. It doesn't happen for every player out of high school, no matter how many stars are by their name. But I think he's got a bright future, Rodney.
Yep, he is right now working at inside linebacker. He's worked at inside. He's moved outside. Now he's back inside. Now, listen, they've got some issues, I think, right now with depth at the inside linebacker position, so that may be one reason why Ben was slid back inside. But, you know, he's certainly a good athlete, Gary. There's no question about that. Very talented coming out of Gordo High School. But like you said, he's a redshirt sophomore. So he's only going to be a sophomore this coming fall. Still has plenty of opportunity.
All right. Thanks for the call, Bob. Let's go over to Trussville and talk with Steve. Steve, welcome into TITV.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Very well, Steve.
First of all, I enjoy the show.
Thanks.
Second of all, you know, I've always heard this comment that you always want your best offensive lineman to protect your quarterback's blind side. Well, in our situation right now, we don't know exactly who the quarterback's going to be. In fact, one quarterback's left-handed, the other quarterback is right-handed. How do you think something like that affects the development of who we put in at the two tackle positions?
Well, Steve, it's a great question because if Tua Tagovailoa is the quarterback, you're right, he's a lefty. That would mean the right tackle, unlike an orthodox quarterback, a right tackle would be protecting his blind side. I do think it is something they will look at. The good news is Alabama's got good tackles, a lot of them, regardless of whether they're right or left. But with a left-handed quarterback, it is an opposite side for the blind side, and I do think that is something that they will take a look at.
Yeah, Matt Womack did a fine job, I thought, in the national championship game protecting Tua's backside. And, you know, obviously he's out this spring. I think Jedrick Wills is a fantastic talent. He's only going to be a sophomore this year. He played some last year. He's a guy that I know is working at that spot, could also work at other spots as well in the interior. But, you know, again, Matt Womack did a nice job, I thought, in that game against Georgia protecting the backside. And I think if Jedrick Wills were to end up at the right tackle spot by some chance, he's certainly very, very gifted at doing that.
And let me make this point. Regardless of whether it's blind side or the side you're looking at, you still want both your tackles to pass block well. I mean, even if you see the pressure coming, you still don't want the guy coming straight in all the time. So it's important that both tackles can pass block, that's for sure. All right, coming up, the women's basketball team does something it hasn't done in 20 years. We'll tell you what that is. And more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, phone lines are open at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. If you'd rather email us, there's the address on your screen. Or like I said, we'll take your tweets if you use the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with more Tider Insider Television right after this. Alabama women's basketball saw its season come to an end in the WNIT Elite Eight on Sunday with a loss to Virginia Tech, but it was another 20-win season for the Tide, and with its 3-game run in the postseason tournament, Christy Curry's team becomes the first since the 90s to have back-to-back 20-win seasons. They're going to bust that NCAA tournament wide open here sooner rather than later. All right, let's go right back to the phone lines because they are now lined up for us. Jamie, you're first up in Hackleburg tonight. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Going well.
All right, I had a question about Noma. I watched the Under Armour game. He looks like he's going to be a real talented kid. Do y'all feel that he'll be able to come in and play right off, or is he going to need time to develop?
Well, Jamie, I'll tell you this. Yabi Anoma, I thought he was the best pass rusher.
He dominated that game, didn't he, in the Under Armour game?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I thought he was the best pass rusher in high school football last year out of Baltimore, Maryland, St. Francis Academy. And, you know, he's a guy that when you look at him, he has an incredible first step when you're talking about coming off the edge as a pass rusher. He's probably 6'4", 6'5", maybe 235, somewhere in there. He probably needs to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. But, Gary, I tell you, with his athletic ability, I'll be surprised if he doesn't play some. You know, again, he needs to get in here and certainly go through the fall camp, the summer program, and all the things that they do. But I do think that this guy, when you're talking about a guy that has a chance to be a difference maker along the way, potentially, he's certainly one of those guys.
Terrell Lewis from Baltimore, Anoma from Baltimore. Terrell Lewis about to be an All-American, mentoring Anoma. I like it. Two very similar players, too. All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk with Phil. Phil, you're next up. What's up, man?
Hey, man, I just want to say you guys do a great job, and y'all are the best on TV, in my opinion.
Thanks.
I just want to touch on the special teams, punting and kicking on close games for the SEC down the stretch. Special teams have been especially the punting, have been a strong part. But they're a little weak on the kicking. If you got any insight you can give me on that.
All right, Phil, you're absolutely right. Special teams can decide whether you win a championship or you don't, Rodney. And there will be a new putter coming in, no doubt about that. The good news is he's got about the same credentials that J.K. Scott had coming out of high school. The place kicking, a little bit up in the air. Yeah. What's the latest?
Well, I would say this. When you're talking about Skylar DeLong, he's the true freshman that's in here now. He's going through spring practice as we speak. So he's a guy that, as Gary said, certainly very, very talented. Now, it's going to be really difficult to match what J.K. Scott did, but he was very highly recruited. So let's keep an eye on him. And then as far as the place kicking goes, obviously Joseph Bulovas is here now. He's a guy that came in this last year's class and went through spring practice. He's going through this spring again. So he's a guy that's very talented. But also, Gary, there's a transfer from Temple, Austin Jones, who was 50 of 67 in his career there at Temple. He's a grad transfer.
Watch him as well.
Watch him as a place kicker.
All right, Reg and Hoover, you got to go fast, man. We're up against it. Tell us what you got, Reg.
I just going to ask a question about the DBs, who looks like the #1 prospects, just the starters, who you might think it would be.
Okay. All right, Reg, if you had to guess at the starting secondary right now,
well,
Rodney,
I think that's really difficult to do, but obviously you've got Trevon Diggs at one corner, Savion Smith certainly competing, Shaheem Carter's in there, could be at the star position. I think Deontay Thompson's going to be a fantastic safety. A couple of other safeties to keep an eye on, Xavier McKinney and Daniel Wright were both true freshmen last year. And don't count out Kareem McDonald. The guy's a football player. He may find a spot as well in some of their packages.
We'll watch for him. All right, thanks for the phone calls. We're back to wrap it up after this. All right, former Bama star Justin Thomas had a crack at #1. If he had beaten Bubba Watson on Sunday in the semifinals of the World Match Play Championship, he would have gotten #1 in the world. He didn't do it. But still, he's going to be one of the favorites going into Augusta at the Masters. He's #2 in the world, and he has already racked up over $5 million this year. And it's not even April. And Jalen Hurts is what they refer to as a skill position player. He's a quarterback. But he lifts like an offensive lineman. This is 600 pounds, Rodney. And watch this squat. I mean, there's nothing cheap about this. This is legit. That's a strong young man right there. All right, that is going to wrap up our show. Before we get out of here, a reminder that our beautiful shirts and ties provided by the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original elephant wear. If you haven't been by and seen them in person, stop by, and you'll love the menswear that's there, or you can shop online at locker-room.biz. Get by and look like $1 million. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We'll have a replay at 10:30, or you can find the show anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney, I'm Gary. Good night.